I'm going to give you an overview of the Irish Fund's response to the European Commission's call for evidence on the EU regulatory framework for financial services. Firstly, what is this consultation about? Well, over the past 5 years, the EU has engaged in an intensive rule-making process which is largely in response to the financial crisis. This consultation marks a change of approach from the Commission in that it is now seeking to review the overall coherence of that body of legislation relating to financial services. And specifically, the Commission is looking for evidence-based input relating to unnecessary burdens, inconsistencies, gaps and unintended consequences in the legislation. This call for evidence is very much aligned to the Commission's Action Plan on Capital Markets Union, or CMU, which at its core seeks to address Europe's funding gap and promote growth and investment in Europe's economy by developing alternatives to bank finance via the capital markets. And this approach is very much looking at the regulatory framework and seeking to identify impediments to developing the capital markets across Europe and seeking to identify what changes can be made to facilitate CMU. So with that in mind, how has Irish Funds responded? Well, at the outset, we are asking for a pause in the regulatory change, given the abundance of changes that have been made in recent years. And if changes are to be made, we are asking for a clearer process and more realistic timeframes for rulemaking and implementation, given that there have been many examples where firms have been grappling with a lack of clarity and also very tight timeframes when it comes to implementation. So that should be taken on board going forward. In relation to the policy making approach, we are emphasising the need for a joined up approach, and we would highlight in particular the EU's money market fund regulation. In particular, the outcome in relation to constant net asset value money market funds needs to be taken into consideration, as we do not want to undermine existing funding in the European Union and jeopardise Capital Markets Union before it even gets off the ground. Regulatory reporting is an area which has created a very significant burden for industry companies in terms of filing all of these reports, and also for regulators in terms of receiving and analysing this data. We think that there are a lot more efficiencies that could be made in terms of the reporting, given the overlap, duplication and inconsistencies, just as the call for evidence has requested input on. So with that in mind, we are proposing an integrated EU reporting strategy to streamline requirements, and also a centralised reporting portal at EU level to replace reporting that is currently being undertaken in 28 member states. We are also looking for a single EU passport notification portal in relation to cross-border fund marketing. This is an area in which further efficiencies could be made, we think, via a single portal, and we think this could also help to address some of the high fees that are being levied for regulatory notifications in individual member states. An appropriate tax environment is absolutely critical to Capital Markets Union, and we have highlighted quite a number of areas of concern here where tax barriers or potential tax barriers could arise out of the tax framework, which could act as a barrier to investment across borders and therefore undermine CMU. We are also highlighting loan origination as a key aspect of CMU. Loan origination funds provide an alternative to bank-based financing for SMEs, and therefore they should be at a priority area under CMU, and we are calling for a common European approach to loan origination, and also for the removal of barriers to non-bank lending across member states. Semi-professional investors are also a key focus area, we think, under Capital Markets Union, and we recommend a new definition for semi-professional investors at an EU level. Some member states have already taken this forward, and it could really enhance the funding base for Capital Markets Union, so it's an idea that we think should be promoted. And finally, we have proposed a range of clarifications relating to the overlap, duplication, inconsistencies and unintended consequences arising out of various sets of rules. In particular, I would highlight AIFMD, UCITS, MiFID II and the Prospectus Directive. You can find our comprehensive response on irishfunds.ie. Thank you.